Climate czar and hobnobber supreme John Kerry said what everyone's thinking. The Inflation Reduction Act is just a bunch of smoke and mirrors. At a climate conference, where he flew private, I'm sure, Kerry said, quote, "I'm not sure how much it has to do with inflation, but that's okay." No, it's not. He mentioned the bill is amazing for all his expensive green initiatives. And multiple reports claim the bill doesn't really ease inflation. So is Mr. Hines Ketchup right for once? Joining me now, Kentucky Republican Congressman and House Judiciary Committee member Thomas Massie's back. Let's get sassy with Massie. I know that, welcome back, first of all. I know John Kerry is one of your favorite targets. Are you?
He's called me more than once.
Oh, we're on the air, Congressman. Did you know and tell you? In 5.
I'm sorry.
4, there we
go.
Go.
But look, he's a scientist. He's a political scientist. That's his degree, political science. Sure. And he's supposed to be Biden's climate expert. But he did one thing over there that you're not supposed to do. He committed the ultimate crime in politics. He committed candor.
Oh, no.
In other words, he let the truth slip out. This doesn't have anything to do with reducing inflation. In fact, if you want to know what a bill is going to do in Congress, look at its name and think about the opposite. The Patriot Act was the most unpatriotic thing you could imagine. And by the way, Kennedy, there are people who agree with John Kennedy, with who are we talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
No, there are people who agree. Yeah, there are people who agree with him. Joe Manchin, for instance, he said that this isn't going to reduce inflation at all. If it does, it might be in 10 years. Well, I have news for Joe Manchin. He's probably not going to be here in 10 years. Also, the Federal Reserve doesn't think it reduces inflation. Why else would they increase the interest rate by 0.75% and announce they're going to do more of that?
Yeah, they're going to go at least 1.5% higher in the next year. I mean, we are definitely heading for some pain, but it's like this bill is the ultimate catfishing. You know, it's like a very thin, flat-chested woman advertising herself on Tinder as Boobs McGillicuddy. Might be some false advertising there, but if you slap that on anything, people are going to be interested.
Well, you could hope that it would reduce the price of an electric vehicle because it's got $7,500 tax credit in there for electric vehicles. But as soon as Ford and GM found out there was going to be a $7,500 tax credit in there for electric vehicles, they increased the price of their electric vehicles by, wait for it, can you guess? $7,500. So it's not even going to lower the price of those.
All right, so I know that there is $60 billion in the bill for environmental justice, and I'm just hoping that means that trees and shrubs can finally hire lawyers.
Well, I don't know, maybe it's so that he can have solar panels on his 4 mansions. Who knows what that money's for? Environmental
justice. That is one of those nebulous terms that seems like it means something, and whoever invented it, they wanted to make it seem like they care. But it's really just $60 billion. It's going to go God knows where. I can't imagine there's going to be a thorough accounting for that, because if you try and account for that money, well,
Well, that's the other thing. I think it's going to increase inflation because they call them tax credits, but it's really spending in the tax bill. You just figure out another way to spend the money, and then that contributes to the national debt and the deficit. You've got to print that money out of thin air. They surely plan to do more of that while Biden is president. And that is ultimately what's contributed the most to inflation, the devaluation of our currency.
Well, and also, you bring up the taxes. The president has said anyone who earns less than $400,000 a year will not get taxed. But this places a $30 billion tax over 10 years on people who make more than $200,000. There are a lot more people in this country who make $200,000 a year than those who make $400,000, and they have basically been lied to.
Yeah, and look, the interest rates going up. That's a tax on anybody who's got a home loan or a car or going to go buy a car and take out a car loan. That's a tax. And the Fed is doing that to try and counteract the bad monetary policies of Joe Biden and Congress, which has been to spend too much money. So they're taking that out of you through inflation and through increased interest rates. Those are all taxes as well.
Yes. And, you know, it's the kind of bell that you can't unring despite all of your promises and all of this irresponsible spending. That's the insurance policy to try and get younger voters to pull the lever or, you know, push the buttons in the midterms. And I don't think it's going to help them, and it shouldn't. Anyone who has been forwarding these kind of irresponsible programs that commit generational theft should be thrown out of office. Congressman Massie, yes, last word. We have 10 seconds. Go ahead.
I would just say the CARES Act was the Don't CARES Act. They didn't care about our kids. They didn't care about the shutting down our economy, and they didn't care about inflation. So if a bill says it's going to do one thing, trust me, it's going to do the exact opposite.
And there are very few people in Congress you can trust. Thomas Massie is one of them. Thank you, sir, for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kennedy.